You need winners? Let the Football Insiders show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Football Insiders, your number one source for football winners.
Week number 11 is passed in the NFL, and all I can say, it was big-time revenge for gamblers, and sports books were left crying at their cages. Because 2 weeks ago, guys, sports books were happy, gamblers were sad, because the underdogs barked big time, going 9-5 against the spread. But this past week, it was a role reversal, because the favorites went 10-4 against the spread, which means all of us gamblers got our money back. And it just goes to prove what I've always been telling you for the past 20 years, that everything in gambling, just like in life, it's all cyclical. Hi everyone, Al DeMarco here along with Steve Budin, and this, of course, is the Countdown, the Kickoff Preview Show, and we are the Football Insiders, and this is the only nationally televised pregame show to break down your top NFL games from a point spread perspective. And Steve, we talk about it all the time. You cannot let the past affect how you gamble the upcoming week, because just because the dogs bark one week doesn't mean the favorites won't come through the next. We just saw that over the past 2 weeks, and just because the favorites ruled the roost this past weekend doesn't necessarily mean the chalks are going to be the way to go this week with our betting action.
Absolutely. It's short-term memory syndrome, and as bookmakers, this has been a big ally of ours for years. As I turn it around now, and we're on the analysis side helping out the gamblers, it's something that we tell them all the time: you got to forget it. Last week is last week. Nobody that lost for you last week owes you anything this week. Nobody that won for you last week has put anything in reserve for you. This is a brand new week, and you got to treat it like that every single week of the season.
You know, guys, as a handicapper, as a gambler, it's why I always say I don't celebrate the wins, nor do I lament the losses, because I believe you've got to remain even-keeled as a gambler. Because those that get too high or get too low, you lose focus, and often you miss that next money-making opportunity that's staring you in the face. And with that being said, let's get to the first game on this week's card. And I don't necessarily know if that money-making opportunity is sitting there when Atlanta comes off its bye and hosts Arizona. The Falcons, a 4-point favorite at home against the Cardinals. Listen, the bottom line with the Falcons is this, and the most important thing to remember about Atlanta is this one sentence. The Falcons are 3-12 their last 15 when laying points. They're 9-2 their last 11 as an underdog. They are a 4-point favorite this week at home against the Georgia Dome. But they're playing the underachieving Arizona Cardinals. If this was last year, hey, you might want to think about grabbing the points with Arizona. But this year, Arizona has repeatedly been a no-show, especially on the road.
I mean, well, Arizona is to team sports what Camden, New Jersey is to hot chicks. You feel me, Al? I mean, prior to the start of the season, I had legitimate handicappers, friends of mine, whose opinions I greatly respect, all touting Arizona as potential Super Bowl contenders. And needless to say, I put those handicappers on the pay no mind list, because the way it looks now, Arizona, you called them underachievers. They're going to be life and death to go 500 this season, Al. Carson Palmer, he's about as relevant as Britney Spears is these days. I mean, talk about a career in decline, doesn't show up anymore, can't compete with the younger up-and-comers, just not in the type of shape physically as before. You know, Al, I'm still talking about Britney. You want to talk about Carson Palmer, 13 touchdowns versus 10 interceptions. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I'll take Matty Ice in the midst of what I would call a career year, putting up all kinds of insane numbers. I mean, things are going to get even better for them now. They got running back Tevin Coleman. He's back from injury. I'm sorry. This one looks easy to me, Al. Falcons win and cover in the Battle of the Birds.
Well, listen, the Cardinals are coming off a 30-24 loss of Minnesota. Carson Palmer, 198 yards passing, 2 interceptions. The offensive line didn't afford him any protection. 4 times he was sacked. Carson Palmer has made 3 road starts this season. The Cardinals are 0-3 in them, and in those 3 starts, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 17 times, and those losses came against the Bills, the Panthers, and the Vikings. The Cardinals have won 1 road game this season. It came against San Francisco. It's the game in which Palmer missed because he was coming off a concussion, and Drew Stanton started that game. You got a Cardinals team that's 3-8 against the spread their last 11 regular season contests. The Falcons, to me, this is a must-win situation for them because they are coming off the bye. And remember, before they had that week off, they went into Philadelphia, an offense that was leading the league over 33 points a game, and Philadelphia absolutely iced your man, Matty Ice, because Philadelphia simply kept Matty Ice on the sidelines. I think the Falcons only ran 48 plays in that game. They had 303 total yards, only 11 first downs, and they lost that game 24-15 because Philadelphia was so successful running the ball. And I'm sure Arizona is going to come out and look to do the same thing with David Johnson. But because the Cardinals have been such underachievers, as I said, especially on the road this season, I think at this cheap price, even though the Falcons don't play a lot of defense, even though the Falcons are a lousy team to lay points with, remember their last home game, shall we say, against the Green Bay Packers, which they were damn lucky to win. I would go with Atlanta, but you aren't finding me putting my money on the Falcons in this spot. Next game, the Miami Dolphins. Who would have thunk a month and a half ago that the Dolphins would be one of the hottest teams when it comes to winning and covering games? 5 straight wins, 5 straight covers. They come back home after a road sweep in Southern California, taking care of business against the Chargers, courtesy of Phillip Rivers, 4 interceptions. Taking care of business thanks to a 14-point fourth quarter against Los Angeles with a 14-10 win against the Rams. Back at home against the San Francisco 49ers, who have done absolutely nothing except lose in Vegas, lose on the field since opening the season with a 28-0 shutout win on Monday Night Football against LA Rams. Tailor-made spot for the Dolphins, but they've got a hell of a lot of injuries along the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I've called them fakes. I've called them frauds. I mean, I don't know if I'm flat out wrong about this Miami team because I got to be honest with you, Al, I really have very little respect for them, especially when you try to paint them as a playoff contender. I mean, but it is hard to argue with success. 5 wins in a row, and Miami has now become the porn stars of the NFL. 2 come-from-behind wins in a row. First at San Diego and then at LA. San Fran, they're looking a little better every week, but no real defense to speak of, Al, with San Fran. I mean, they've gone over the posted total 6 of the last 9 times. Miami's gone over 4 of the last 5 times at home. I think it's total time. I'm going to go over the posted total here and get the money.
I don't think you can play the total in this game because the Rams have no offense, especially starting the rookie quarterback, his first road start, and Jared Goff. He wasn't exactly spectacular. We're talking about San Francisco here. See, I'm so fast forwarding to the Rams game. I just can't wait to talk about that one against New Orleans. I'm talking about San Francisco here and Colin Kaepernick, who has not performed well at all. But then again, he has limited offensive resources as well. He doesn't exactly have a huge offensive arsenal. I look at this San Francisco team, and the problem with the 49ers all season long, they've been unable to stop the run. And even though Miami has so many injuries along that offensive line, I still think Miami's going to go to the bread and butter, and that's going to be Jay Ajayi. And because they're going to look to run the ball, and why wouldn't they? Because the 49ers come in here with the number 32 run defense in the league. And once again, guys, there are only 32 teams in the league. When you're allowing 179.5 yards a game and 5.2 yards a carry, why not give Jay Ajayi the ball 30, 35 times in this game? And that's going to run time off the clock. That means Ryan Tannehill does not have to put the ball up 35 times. So I think although this Dolphins team is not explosive offensively, I don't think that it's going to afford them that many scoring opportunities. So that's why I'm not in love with the total in this game. I would lean more toward taking the Dolphins, but I'm also in agreement with you. Even though they've won and covered 5 straight, I don't believe in putting good money on bad teams, and I still think Miami's a bad team. So I say either bet Miami or you just skip the game totally, and I would not waste my money on the total. And this is not one of those games either where I would take Miami and the total involved in a 2-team teaser Again, good money, bad teams, not worth the investment. The next game, though, is the one that I'm salivating about. Couldn't wait to fast forward to talk about the lousy Rams starting a rookie quarterback on the road. I just don't see this game being close. Love New Orleans in this spot, especially since the Saints are coming off two close, heartbreaking losses last week. Fourth quarter rally falling short on Thursday night at Carolina. And, of course, their last home game, the strange loss where they lose on a block point-after attempt to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Al, to me, this New Orleans team, they're a lot like a poor man's version of the New England Patriots. I mean, their defense may be getting a little better each week, but their plan is similar to the plan of Bill Belichick with Brady. Simply put, you just got to outscore the team you're playing, period. Now, the Saints can execute that game plan masterfully against mediocre teams. That just can't score with the likes of a Drew Brees in the domes. Well, LA fans, it's time to face the truth. As much as it hurts, that's right, Biggie is better than Tupac, and the Saints are better than the Rams. So give me New Orleans minus the points at home. They're going to get the money.
You know, before the back-to-back losses to the Broncos and the Panthers, the Saints had won 4 out of 5. And even though they lost those 2 games straight up, they have still covered 6 of their last 7. And as far as the Rams, listen, they've got no offense. The switch to Case Keenum to Jared Goff has not made any change in that offense. They took the 10-0 lead at home against the Dolphins. Dolphins scored 14 points in the second half of the fourth quarter on the road and managed to escape with the 14-10 road win in L.A. This team is not built to score any points, and I'm referring to Los Angeles. We know the Saints could put points up. I'm looking for Drew Brees to have a big one here. Listen, against the Dolphins, who, again, are not that good of a defensive team. L.A. was just 2 for 13 on third downs in that 14-10 loss, and I just think New Orleans is going to be able to name the score in this. I don't think it's going to be a particularly high-scoring game because the Rams do have a good defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see it under, but I can certainly see this game be somewhere along the lines of 28-7, 34-13, but I definitely think it's going to be an easy rout for New Orleans, one of my favorite games on this Sunday's card. Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break and come back for part 2 of this weekend's show, and we'll be back with you after this brief commercial break. 4.5 years ago, I created the Charity Play of the Week program, and in that time, you and I have created a community of caregivers and have combined to contribute well over $350,000 to people in times of need. For those of you that have joined me, my thanks. For those of you that are not aware of the Charity Play of the Week program, let me just remind you, once a week, I give one of the top plays from one of the handicappers away here at the site for free, no strings attached. If it wins, then on a quid pro quo basis, I ask you to make a donation to a charity recipient that I choose on a weekly basis. I don't care if it's $1, $5, or $50. You don't have to put in the $250 that I do each time it wins, but I ask you to participate. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Why? Because it creates positive karma. And you and I both know in this thing we do called gambling, we can never have enough positive karma. Again, I give you the play for free, and if it wins, I then ask you to make a contribution. It's done on the honor system, guys. And again, over the past 4.5 years, this community of caregivers has contributed well over $350,000. So, it's usually on Tuesday or Wednesday on the site. Check it out. You'll see one of the featured plays from one of the handicappers given away for free, no strings attached. It's the Charity Play of the Week program, and I hope you become a member of one of the most important things that you'll ever come across in gambling. Nobody's ever done it. I created it, and it's definitely something that will produce some positive karma in your life and benefit others in a time of need. Welcome back, everyone. My favorite team playing here in the first game we're going to take a look at, Seattle and Tampa Bay, because the Seahawks were my best bet this past Sunday when they took care of business at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, Seattle was coming off that road win and cover and the upset at New England, but it should be of no surprise because the Seahawks are a second-half team. They are the closer in the NFL, to use a baseball analogy, because from November forward, the Seahawks are 18-3 straight up and 18-5 against the spread in regular season action, November going forward over the past 3 years. But here, they're taking on a Tampa Bay team that has a lot of momentum, coming off a huge road upset of the Kansas City Chiefs. Cheap price for Seattle. Steve, worth the investment taking Seattle on the road here or backing Tampa Bay as a home pup?
Well, I would have gladly bet my entire bankroll that you weren't a Bucs fan if you let me do that before you mentioned who you loved. But I can tell you, Al, when it comes down to Seattle, I mean, when you really analyze it, they're only better than Tampa Bay at two small things, offense and defense. And this is the thing, Al, every week that goes by, this Russell the Hustle Wilson gets a little healthier, a little closer to actually considering himself close to 100%. I mean, the Seahawks usually don't get the money on the road, but you can't ignore the big wins over Buffalo, New England, and Philly. All this while the Tampa Bay numbers, Al, they read like an obituary. 1-6 versus the Vegas spread, the last 7 at home. Their defense is like Carla Kaplan from Hebrew school. I mean, all I had to do was get her to her house, and she would give up the cookies. Same thing with the Tampa Bay defense. They gave up 30 and 43 points in the losses at home to Oakland and Atlanta. How the hell are they going to handle Seattle? They can't. I'll take the Seahawks minus the wood. Like you said, it's a cheap chalk on the road, and they'll get the money.
I'm with you as well. Look at what the Seahawks have done here in the past couple of games against the Patriots and the Eagles. 420 yards of total offense at New England. 438 total yards at home against Philadelphia. However, I will put a little asterisk next to those Seattle offensive outbursts. C.J. Prosise, who had really come out of nowhere to rejuvenate the Seattle ground game, the rookie out of Notre Dame, he got hurt, suffered a shoulder injury against Philadelphia. He is sidelined indefinitely. That is definitely going to put a crimp in the Seattle attack. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is they finally got Thomas Rawls back after a near 2-month absence against Philadelphia, and he went for 57 yards on 14 carries. So he is now going to be in charge of giving Seattle something they didn't have the first 8 weeks of the season, and that is a consistent ground game to take some of the pressure off of Russell Wilson. But you look at the Seattle offense, the last 3 games, 31 points, 26 points. They only had 31 total points in the 9 previous quarters combined prior to that 3-game stretch. And in those 3 games where they put all those points on the board, Russell Wilson's numbers, 63 for 94, 892 yards, 6 touchdowns. And as you said, he's starting to flash some of that mobility as he's recovered from all those injuries to the knee, to the ankle, to the pec muscle. And he's starting to be able to extend plays by being able to scramble in the pocket. He's not taking off with reckless abandon like he did in previous years, but once again, just the mere threat of him scrambling is starting to make defenses play a little more honest, and that's opening up the field for Seattle. As you pointed out, Tampa Bay at home, a lousy point spread team, and just lousy defensively in their last 2 home games, giving up over 1,000 yards in those 2 games as well, and those losses to the Raiders and the Falcons. So I would go ahead and call Seattle definitely a cheap chalk and go ahead and ride the Seahawks again. November, December, January regular season games, they are just a moneymaker in Vegas. Your next game, Oakland returning home from Mexico City, where they used a late 4th quarter surge to get the win and cover on Monday night against the Houston Texans, hosting the Carolina Panthers. Listen, Silver and Black are red hot, and as long as they keep winning, I'm going to keep backing them.
Oh, I'm going to have to go against you here, Al. Look, I mean, let me keep it short and sweet and try to stick to the known knowns and let all the known unknowns continue to swirl. Look, the Raider defense, it's like taking a hooker on a date, Al. They're not impressing anybody. Trust me. I mean, to me, this is the perfect opportunity for a quarterback like Cam Newton to have a huge game, really flex some offensive muscle here against what I would call a Swiss cheese defense. I think the dog barks in this one. I'm going with Carolina plus the points. We can save the vig and just bet each other.
Problem is, this is not 2015. This is 2016, and this is not Cam Newton of a year ago. This is the same Cam Newton who, was 14 for 33. 14 for 33 against a lousy New Orleans defense for 192 yards. And in that game last Thursday night, the Panthers only had 223 total yards against the Saints. They were damn lucky to win that game. They were damn lucky to even be ahead against Kansas City, the game in which they blew it in the fourth quarter and lost in the final play of that game the week prior at home. Panthers are a tease. They have looked good at times this year, but they have earned their sub-500 record, and anybody who thinks they are within a touchdown of Oakland are sorely mistaken. I think the Raiders are the real deal. I go back to the demolition of Denver a couple of weeks ago before their bye, when they were up 30-13 in the fourth quarter. They were up 2 touchdowns before Denver even got on the board. Yeah, they struggled in the altitude against Mexico City against Houston, but when it mattered, Derek Carr got the offense going, and they delivered in the fourth quarter of that game. So this Carolina pass defense is number 27 in the league. I think Derek Carr will have a big game. I think the Raiders will be able to run the ball against the Panthers as well. And listen, the Panthers are 0-4-1 against the spread their last 5 on the road, so I'll go the other way, and I'll take Oakland in this one. 4 points, 4.5 points, very cheap for Oakland. Next game, we got Denver against Kansas City. Broncos coming off the bye. Andy Reid, since arriving, take over the Chiefs. 1-5 straight up, 2-4 against the spread versus the Broncos. The Chiefs coming off a shocking loss. They had won 17 of their previous 19 regular season games for taking on the Buccaneers this past week. And of course, they lose that game. I don't see Kansas City rebounding here against a Denver team that's rested and plays so well at home.
Al, I don't know about you, but I think this game's going to be closer than Kentucky first cousins. I mean, trust me on that one. Kansas City coming off a split last year versus Denver. Should have won them both. But the real problem for most gamblers, and we touched on it in the intro, is one of perception. Most gamblers, just like you said, can't get that last loss to Tampa Bay out of their minds, and rightfully so. I mean, but this is short-term memory syndrome. I talked about it in the intro, and it usually is devastating to bankrolls. I mean, throw that game out. You said it. KC's won 17 of their last 20 regular season games. Aqib Talib, he's got a week back, so now they're going to give him injections, Al. I mean, the only injection I need for this game is propofol. Trust me, this one's a sleeper, kind of like my 8th grade year in middle school. Very little scoring going on in this one, folks. I'm going under the total for the money. That's under 39.5.
Well, I can certainly see this being a low-scoring game, but, I do wonder about that Kansas City defense. They could not get off the field against Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston threw for over 300 yards. Bucks ran 74 plays for 442 yards. They had the ball 35 minutes. They converted 11 of 16 on third down situations, and that game was in Arrowhead. This game is not. This game is in Denver. I think the Broncos at this price are cheap. I like Denver. Can certainly see your point with this game staying under 8-2-1. The under is delivered in the last 11 meetings between these two, no matter the location. But again, I will ride Denver in this particular contest. It's amazing. We do not talk about these games, which side we are on, where we're leaning. We just pick which games we're going to talk about on the game, and then we go on our way, and we don't do anything before we actually get on air and start doing this. But we are differing on just about every single one of these games down the board.
But bookmaker's dream today.
Something tells me, though, here on this last game, I can't imagine that we are going to be differing on this particular game to sum up this show. New England, minus the points against the New York Jets. You have said repeatedly that the Jets are one of the worst teams in the league. You have said since week number 1 the Jets are a fraud. I can't imagine that you will go against Tom Brady in this one.
No, I mean, really, I was just in New York earlier in the week, and all everybody's talking about in New York is whether or not it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick or Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty or Ryan Fitzpatrick, and what the implications are for the future. Are you kidding me? Don't they realize they got Tom Brady on the other side of the ball, and it doesn't matter who they line up under center? They're not going to be able to compete with Tom Brady, 16 touchdowns versus 1 interception and only 6 games back. I mean, it's true. Jets are 5-0-1 against the spread versus the Patriots in the last 6 meetings. But I mean, if they weren't Al, this line would be 13.5. And as an ex-bookmaker, I can tell you, this line should be 13.5. So give me New England, minus the cheap wood.
Well, right before we got on, I happened to read that Todd Bowles said because they're still playing for this year, I don't know what universe Todd Bowles thinks he's in, they are not going to start Bryce Petty. They are going with Ryan Fitzpatrick. God knows why. Not that it's going to make a hell of a lot of difference, and it doesn't matter. Even though the Jets have covered 5 of the last 6 in the series, even though the Jets upset the Patriots in one of last year's meetings, if you're going to bet this game, you got to bet it with Tom Brady and the Patriots. They're coming off the bye and the road win at San Francisco last week. They are 5-1 straight up and against the spread since Brady returned from his exile. And in those games, Brady has only completed 70.4% of his passes for a little over 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 1 interception, which just proves my point again that if you have a supermodel wife, you should definitely take the first 4 weeks of the season off and go on a bikini vacation because it doesn't affect your style of play.
Amen.
Again, the Jets' number 22 pass defense, they only have 19 sacks in 10 games. I think 7 of them came in week number 1 against Andy Dalton and the Bengals. So Brady ought to have a field day here, and there's no love lost between Bill Belichick and the Jets franchise. So again, if you're going to bet this game, which I would not advise, you got to bet the Patriots, or otherwise just walk away from it. Hey guys, that'll wrap up this week's edition of the Countdown to Kickoff show. Remember to catch my daily video each and every day over on the website. For Steve Budin, I am Al DeMarco, and we'll catch you next week. Make some money and enjoy this Thanksgiving Day weekend.